is a peak human experience. Hey guys, today we are in a Lamborghini Aventador S Roadster. With all these hybrid cars and EVs coming out, this battery technology that really hasn't been the most reliable and has been sort of soul-sucking for the car industry. While those are very impressive cars, but maybe take a step back and think, would you want one of these instead? So I want to explore the old school feel of supercars, even though this is of course a modern car, just a good old-fashioned fat V12. An absolute insane car. We're going to take it out today and experience potentially the greatest supercar of all time. Jesus Christ. Gunshots at 2,500 RPM is crazy. So starting off in the default Strata setting, that's just essentially your normal street mode. Really not what you want to be driving an Aventador in, so let's go ahead and change that to Sport. Yeah, this is gonna be a good one. This car is a 2018 with just over 9,000 miles, asking for $24,995. I have no idea what's behind me. So starting off, we have a 6.5 liter naturally aspirated V12, 740 brake horsepower, 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds. Top speed of 217 miles an hour. That has been the top speed of the Aventador ever since it launched. And it's also quite a high one. This is a 7-speed single clutch paddle shift transmission. You know, I've driven lots of Lambos as of lately. I was in a Diablo 6.0 last week. Now here we are 2 generations later in the Aventador S. You know, you see Paganis and Koenigsegg's driving along the road with just immense road presence and aura. The Aventador is really the only car, like non-hypercar, I'll say, let's say under $1 million, that gives you that same feeling of just absolute road dominance. Like just king of the hill. Really nothing matches it. Like this just feels so much more eventful than even something like an 812 Superfast or an Aston Martin DBS Superleggera. And that's really how these cars stand out and really the main appeal of an Aventador. Like you're not buying an Aventador to win races. While it is still a very fast car, 740 horsepower, 217 flat out, like it is not a slow car, but it feels big and it's just impactful. It just looks insane. Like I've said it in the past in my previous Aventador videos. This car in front of me, this Hyundai Santa Fe thing, is terrified right now. When they see this wide, red, angular shape aggressively approaching from behind, they're like, yeah, I gotta get out of the way for this guy. This guy is a psychopath. All right, let's put it into Corsa mode, track mode. That makes the gear changes much more aggressive, suspension even harder. And let's see how she does. I don't think my heart has ever beat faster than it is right now. Yeah, that is a slight improvement over the first-gen Aventador, for sure. In Corsa mode, I know they always said the gear changes were 50 milliseconds, which is the fastest, like, non-dual clutch. And it feels it. You know, a lot of complaints about the Aventador being very clunky and just kind of dim-witted. And while in traffic, that is very true. Once you're on the open road, none of that matters. Sometimes I do sit back and wonder, what am I doing with my life? It is a Wednesday morning. How did I find myself in this position? Does have some sort of aftermarket exhaust on it. We had it up on the lift yesterday and there was no branding anywhere. So I'm 6'4", and while I now have 93 million miles of headroom, the rest of the cabin is pretty tight. Not as tight as the Diablo from last week, but my head is even with the windshield. Makes for it, oh God, which makes for an interesting view out. At stoplights, you kind of gotta break your neck. While I do think it is the prettiest Aventador ever made, I also think it's the least aggressive looking. The front end looks, dare I say, softer compared to the first gen. The first gen just had this really kind of basic, just classic, mean look to it. At the S, I feel like it's a little bit more rounded in the front. So I do feel like it's not quite as aggressive, obviously, as, of course, the SV and SVJs, but I do think it is a very elegant design, which is not really something that you'd call a Lamborghini. Usually they're just bombastic and insane. Now the S does introduce Ego mode, but Ego essentially allows you to customize your drive modes. So if you want the Strada steering, but you want the Corsa suspension, you can kind of mix and match how you like, which you couldn't do in the first gen. Gear changes feel like you're being brutally beaten by a silverback gorilla. That's part of the fun. No one's buying this car because it drives smoothly. Oh. I actually love the Corsa gear changes. I feel like more cars need some kind of kick in the back. Oh, baby. This is a peak human experience. The Aventador Tinnitus Edition. If aliens were to land on Earth and wanted to know what the definition of fun was, I would take them out in this. If you showed somebody this car in the 1800s, they would die instantly. Their mind wouldn't be able to comprehend anything, and they would just shatter. The steering actually has a decent amount of feel through it. Steering is nicely weighted. It's not super numb like a lot of the modern cars. This car does weigh about 2 tons, and it does feel that. And you know, with all this new hybrid technology coming out that just tends to be very I can't even talk. Very maintenance heavy, right? The 296s, SF90s, and while they are very fast and pretty impressive performance-wise, it's just, some people seem to really like the simplicity of just a combustion engine and that's it. A big fat V12. Can we just go back to that, please? Now, the Revuelto is a hybrid, of course, and a V12 hybrid, which is nice, 1,000 horsepower. But even still, I've heard multiple issues. We have multiple customers that have had issues with their Revueltos already. You might want to go back, take a step back, and consider one of these. An Aventador for about half the price of a Revuelto, just about. And also, the V12 Lamborghini market always tends to appreciate in value at some point. Like Countachs right now are going crazy. Diablos, as we discussed last week, are starting to go crazy. I mean, I'm talking like $600,000-$700,000 cars. The Mercies have really held well. Of course, if it's a manual, it's catastrophically more. But the Aventador, I don't know if that'll follow suit, you know, maybe in 10, 15, 20 years. They certainly made a lot more of these cars than the Mercies, Diablos cars before, as Lambo has really upped their production numbers. However, while the Countach is considered one of the most iconic supercars of all time, if not the most iconic, at least of the 80s, I feel like the Aventador might go down as the most iconic supercar of all time. Got a Gen Z broccoli cut following me from behind in a Mercedes C-Class. Goodbye. The impact that the Aventador has had on car culture, the car community, all the car spotters, every car show, you pull up in, really any V12 Lambo, but if you pull up in an Aventador, you just get automatic like crowds surrounding. I was leaving a Cars and Coffee one time in an Aventador, and I saw multiple like 13-year-old broccoli cut kids with the socks and Birkenstocks chasing after me, and 2 of them tripped and fell. Like while they were full on sprinting, because they just wanted to get a shot of it leaving. And this is how the Aventador was supposed to be experienced, with the top down. You can hear all that thunderous activity so much more clearly. Another improvement that the S gives over the first-gen Aventador is all-wheel steering. And that just transforms the car. This does have 130% more downforce than a first-gen Aventador. And, you know, can I really feel that on the street? Not really. But it's nice to know. And because of the oil steering, the turning radius is vastly improved. In a normal Aventador, that would have taken like a 47-point turn to make that U-turn. Whoa! This car new was probably $550,000. Finished on Rosso Mars, which I do think is a very lovely color. Of course, if you have any kind of hair, it's really not ideal for an open top, but you know, you got to make do. It's worth the trade-off. This is one of the final, if not the last, car to still be using a single clutch transmission. Like even the SVJ, I think a 2023 model year car, still using a single clutch. People either love you or they hate you when you're in this car. Like there's really, there's no in between. This car would solve world peace. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, and I will see you guys in the next one.